All right. So I'm Ananya, and some of y'all might have dialed in on my previous sessions where we've gone over some of the basics, some of the frequently asked questions, looked at topics of immunity, gut health, supplements. So now today's is a fairly short presentation because, as Vijay sir said, in the end we'll be doing a Q&A with other members of the sports science team. So today it's more focused on nutrition for recovery, which again has been the recovery topic has been touched upon by the other members of the team. So this is just the nutrition aspect for it. We need to keep all the other recovery strategies at the back of our mind as well. So let's get into it. Firstly, why is it important? Why is using making sure that we're recovered well in from a nutrition perspective? What are some of the signs or the outcomes if we're not adequately recovered? So we could have increased fatigue, so being tired, whether it's at training or at school, it can affect our performance. So again, that can be at training or in our competitions or events. Then, as everyone's quite a few presenters have spoken about, the purpose of a lot of our sessions and training is that we grow and we adapt from it. So that adaptation might not happen to its full potential if we are not recovering well enough, and we can experience increased muscle soreness. So this is again going to impact our training, and that it just becomes a little bit of a cycle. So all of these factors or these outcomes are particularly important when we are training 2 times a day, which is a heavy training load. So in our current situation, that might not be occurring, but it's still very, very important to make sure we understand why recovery is important and what the role nutrition plays in this. So, nutrition recovery, before we get into the details of it, we must realize that it needs to be planned. It's not something that is random. If just the way that we plan our training and our schedules, we know what's like our coaches plan the sessions. Similarly, we also need to make sure our recovery strategies are all planned and they fit with our schedule and they fit with whatever is happening in terms of our training. They need to be targeted. If as an athlete I have some specific goals, it could be something like improving or changing my body composition, maybe I need to gain some muscle mass, right? So these specific goals need to tie in with our recovery strategies, because otherwise we'll just be working on two separate tangents and we won't get anywhere. So all our goals need to align and we need to make sure it all works together. And lastly, it needs to be integrated with our other recovery strategies. So these are techniques or strategies that other presenters have spoken about. So as I said, I won't be going into this, but things like our sleep schedule, our massage, we need to make sure that our nutrition recovery is integrated with this. Giving an excuse such as after the training session, I was really tired, so I needed to sleep, so I didn't eat. That's not you're displacing one thing for another. There needs to be both things happening in tandem, making sure you're suppose scheduling your massage if you have as per your food, like your meal timing, and it's those small things that can then make a difference. So now this is going to be a bit of a repetition from the first presentation I'd done, in case, and I hope a lot of you who attended remember this, but these are the basic principles of what we need to keep in mind in our recovery meal. So our recovery meal is essentially our post-training meal. And as a recap, what we need to include is refuel. So we need to refuel our energy stores. So we've used up carbohydrate, we've used up energy. So we need to include food to refill that. We need to repair. So our muscle, which is consists of protein, has gone through some wear and tear, and we now need to repair it so that it grows back, it grows to be stronger and improve our next session. We need to rehydrate because we've sweat in our training session, we've lost fluids, we might have lost some salts. So we need to make sure that we are consuming fluid after our session. And we need to include our colorful foods, our micronutrient rich foods, because these are what are going to help make sure our immune system is supported. Because all our training sessions, especially when we're training twice a day, are very intense and it can take a load on the body, right? So we need to make sure that throughout we're eating well to take care of our energy levels, our energy stores, making sure we're fueling our performance, making sure we're rehydrating, we're giving our muscle enough food so that it can repair and grow, and as well as supporting our immune system, right? So while these are the important things to keep in mind in our post-training or our recovery meal, the number one rule is to always eat adequately for our individual requirements. So these are the basic principles that we keep in mind, the components of the meal. And like I said in the first session, we went through some examples of meals that we could prepare keeping these things in mind. How much of each item, how much do we need in total? These come down to individual requirements. And before even focusing on the details, if we're not in totality eating enough to support our body, then there is no way we can recover well. We can be eating all the, like, absolutely healthy food and everything that we think we're supposed to, but if it's not enough for our body, then our body is not going to be able to recover well, because at the end of the day, this is what is supporting our body to in every aspect, from the immune aspect to just the energy levels and the repair processes that occur. So to repeat once again, the 4 R's are refueling, repairing, rehydrating, and revitalize. All of these must be present in our post-training meals, and they which are also our recovery meals. So similarly, if it was a competition or an event, again, these are the same principles we would follow. We've just had an intense event, we've used up energy stores, so we must include some carbohydrate-rich food. We've used up our muscles need to undergo repair, so we must include protein-rich food. We've lost some fluids, so we must rehydrate. And to support our immune system, we must include some color, some whole grains, so that we get in the different micronutrients, just so important for our overall recovery and just for supporting our immune health, right? And then it comes down to timing. So when should we eat what? So in an or the first thing that we definitely must get in as quick as possible is the fluids for hydration, because especially in a pool session, we don't realize, and it's often difficult to drink as much water as we can in a dry land session. So it's extremely important to make sure we're replenishing those fluid losses, right? And then the timing of the other 3 R components can be a little bit more flexible, and this would depend on how many sessions we are training. So if we have another session on the same day, which is very often the case when we're training twice a day, then it's extremely important to eat within 60 minutes, because that's going to ensure we're ready for our next session. Our body is able to recover and then prepare for the next session. So to give our all in the next session and make the most of it, we must eat a good post training meal within 60 minutes. So this is again applicable. Okay, great. So I'll just repeat this slide because I'm not sure where I got cut off. So as quick as we can, we must get in the fluids, especially after a pool session where it's likely we might not have had enough water, or it can become difficult to drink enough. If we have another session, another race on the same day, it's extremely important that we eat within the 60 minutes and we eat a good, hearty post-training meal to account for all our needs. But if we don't have another session that day, then it's all right to have maybe a small snack and then eat our main meal at regular times. So for example, if it's been a morning session and and it's a little bit in between breakfast and lunch, you don't want to eat a big meal because you're anyways home, you can just have a snack, or maybe have something that contains, of course, the protein, the carbohydrates and things like that, but maybe not in the quantity that you need to completely refuel and to provide adequate amount and have a good meal which has these components as well. So we spoke about building our plate as well in the first session, and how we can balance that out on our hard training days and less like our low training days. So that would be kept in mind even during this time. So it's definitely important, whether it's been a competition or it's just a training session, that you make sure you're eating and drinking fluids to fulfill all the all the groups that we need to, so that we get recovery. So all the 4 hours. When we have 2 training sessions, then the timing becomes more important, where you must eat within the 60 minutes. If there's not another session, it can be a little bit more flexible. You can have a light snack and then eat at your main regular time. Or if you prefer, you could have your meal then too. It just depends on the individual schedule. So this is just a little bit again of a recap with regards to protein, because I find that very often we find it easy to make sure we're meeting the needs or to eat adequately for maybe the other nutrients that are required. But protein is something that even we get asked a lot about, and especially with different dietary requirements, it can become something that maybe we're lacking a little bit. So I thought I would just recap on this, because, of course, protein is important for growth, repair, and just metabolic activity in our bodies. So this is really a contributor. If we're not eating adequate protein, it can affect our recovery to a large extent. We can maybe things like the soreness, or not feeling like we have recovered completely, feeling tired, can often be related to having less protein. And also, many of our athletes are at a growing age. So it's not just for the perspective of our swimming and our training, but even just because we need to grow and grow in height, develop. Protein is important for that as well. So just as a little bit of a recap, we must include what are called complete proteins. So these have all the subunits or the amino acids that the body needs. And these are largely from foods such as eggs, chicken, fish, so all our meat products, in terms of dairy products like milk, curd, paneer, even tofu. And if we have, due to our dietary preferences, if we're vegetarian or something, maybe we could make the pair so that we get an adequate portion of protein. So you could pair up dal and curd. You could pair up nuts and milk, for instance, in a smoothie. If we eat just egg but not other meat products, we could have a few eggs, or with our main meals, to add that in, so that it just boosts the protein content. So protein is, of course, a super important nutrient, but that's not to say the other nutrients are not, right? We still need to ensure that we're refueling as well, eating enough carbohydrate, we're having our colorful veggies, colorful fruits for our micronutrients. Every single nutrient has its place. We can't replace one with the other. I've just highlighted protein because we've noticed that it's often something that maybe due to dietary preferences, or just because of our habitual, our food habits, it could be something that athletes lack in, and it could be something that improving often alleviates a lot of the recovery complaints from a nutrition perspective. Right, so making sure that we make our smart pairings if we don't eat the complete proteins, too many of those options, or otherwise just making sure we have a good portion of them. Next, we go into other specific foods. So we might have heard that this can be a large range, right? There's a lot of maybe even supplements that one might have heard of. Today, I'm just going to focus on the foods that can help in the recovery aspect. The first one being our antioxidants. So these are basically helping to neutralize, through our exercise, through our training. The body is going to undergo repair. It needs to neutralize maybe some chemicals that are formed, and our antioxidants are extremely beneficial in keeping all the cellular processes going and making sure that we are recovering completely. So having different colors of veggies. So they all provide different nutrients. Having leafy vegetables in particular is extremely beneficial. They're high in different kinds of antioxidants. In terms of fruit, there is evidence that certain fruits such as pineapple and pomegranate, even watermelon, are particularly rich in antioxidants, and they are helpful in recovery a little bit. Like, they have some additional benefits compared to other fruits. So these could be worthwhile to integrate into our diet maybe once after a certain training session. Variety is still important. These are just some suggestions that maybe we could trial these and it could benefit. Um, the more the color we have, the more variety we're getting. Something I often suggest is to maybe make sure that at least our veggies in a day, we eat at least three different colors. We make sure that we are incorporating some kind of leafy vegetable on an every alternate day basis so that we're getting in these kind of high recovery fruits like pineapple and pomegranate at maybe once a day during the high training load. Then omega-3 fatty acids, these can be anti-inflammatory. So our exercise, our training can create an inflammatory response, and this is completely natural. What we need to do is making sure that our diet has enough of these anti-inflammatory compounds so that our body can adjust and adapt to this inflammation and become stronger at the end of it. So our vegetables and fruits which have antioxidants help in this aspect. And another powerful thing is the omega-3 fatty acids. So the best source of this is our oily fish. So that could be things like salmon and mackerel. In terms of vegetarians, we get it from seeds like walnuts, chia seeds, flax seeds. So incorporating these, making sure that we're having enough. So if we do eat fish, then just having 2 serves of fish in a week is usually adequate. And in terms of the seeds, it would be something to then have on a daily basis because we do get lesser quantity from them. Lastly, we know that there are a lot of herbs and spices that we use. So I've just highlighted one over here, which is our haldi. So this contains something known as curcumin, and this is extremely anti-inflammatory. So these are the little things that we can add into our diet. So something simple like having haldi milk at night is something we have been doing as Indians for many years, and it is definitely of benefit. Whether it is required, that would depend on the individual needs. But these are little small things like haldi we anyways use in our cooking, spices like ginger. All of these do contain small quantities of these anti-inflammatory compounds. And when we, in our overall diet, we're including these in, and they all have their place, that's when they start to show benefit. So these are just some ideas. It's extremely important. Even from a lot of this ties in, if we recall my previous presentation with the immunity and gut health aspect. So definitely I would suggest that veggies and fruits are an absolute must. There is no escaping those, and this is just another benefit of it. The antioxidants that they provide that that can be really beneficial in maintaining our immunity, maintaining our and helping sure we recover. Omega-3 fatty acids are again absolutely important, and making sure that if we're vegetarian, we are incorporating some of these seeds can be beneficial. And in terms of the herbs and spices, using them as we do, or maybe incorporating them in forms like haldi doodh if required. So that's most of the recovery aspect. I've just repeated my contact details once again in case anybody would like to make a note of that. And now I'll just open it up for questions. So of course, Chetna, Yash, Fatima are here as well.
Okay,
And
so